Hi there, everybody. Here to give you a little bit of background before we jump into our Civil War Uncovered. I'm really excited for you to showcase all the great stuff you've done. This is going to be a little different this year. So instead of having the presentations live, I'm hoping that as many of you can screencast them. And I'm going to give you a little tour guide sheet. Think of it like your passport through the Civil War as we travel through time. We're not going to have time for you to look at all of them, unfortunately. And I'm seeing what's coming in and they look amazing. So, but what I'm hoping you could do is visit a few stops related to battle and military history, a few stops related to social history, right? Um, Political history, and then kind of be able to kind of get a sense of the progression of the war. So before we did that, I wanted to give you just a little bit of background. So I'm going to post these slides so you can check them out. And you can see here, I've got a link to this. Oh no, Adobe Flash Player is blocked. Can I run it? Oh, sad face. Oh, hold on. Okay, let me try this again. Perhaps I should have done this before I pressed record. Oh, no. Okay, Flash strikes again. But there was a really cool interactive map helping you see the advantages and disadvantages of both sides. I'll work on that. Let me work on that and then I'll post it to Classroom. So we already talked about, and we did this in our one slider, the first shots fired at Fort Sumter. So there's actually a really cool link from the National Park Service right there. And remember, Fort Sumter was in off the coast of Charleston, South Carolina. Actually, it's in the water. And this is where the first shots are fired. But as those who are doing the first Battle of Bull Run will tell you, this was not really the first battle, right? Like very few casualties here, but it is the point of no return. It is the point where South Carolina fires on a federal fort. It's a big deal. So this is when the war officially starts, okay? So the first Battle of Bull Run is part of this broader campaign. And I want to talk to you about the general strategy of the war, give you a little background on that. So we've got what's called the Anaconda Plan. And let me give you the example of this. So the term anaconda, it's a big snake, right? And it kills its prey by squeezing it to death. So the Anaconda Plan is the general plan of the United States to win this war. And it involves blockading the Confederacy. You know why? Because they're pretty much a one crop economy, right? They got a lot of cotton. They don't have a lot of anything else. They need food. They need manufactured goods. And they need England, really. And this is a big thing. We saw this a little in chapter 20. They're going to overplay their hand on how willing England is to jump in on their side because England never will. But as you know, they're thinking about it, aren't they? They're thinking about it. So it's something that really terrifies Lincoln. He knows that if a foreign country jumps in, and we saw that play out in the American Revolution, didn't we? That they might pull this off. So big part of this is starving them to death. You can see the ships right there, blockading them. Another big part of the war involves capturing the Confederate capital of Richmond, Virginia. Okay. Now you might be like, how hard can that be? Turns out pretty hard. It's not going to fall until the very end of the Civil War, which again is a testament to the leadership that is in. Remember, we said 7 out of 8 military colleges at this point are in the Confederacy. West Point is the only one in the United States. So this is a big problem. This is a big problem. So there, a bunch of the war is trying to get to Richmond, and 60% of the Civil War is fought in the state of Virginia. If you've ever driven through Virginia, you notice a lot of brown historical marker signs on the highway, right? And I'm always like, can we stop, pull over? My family's like, keep driving, don't let her look. So you'll notice that. You're going to see that if you ever drive through. Virginia will be devastated by the war. It's going to make it complicated when we got to put this country back together again. Another big part of the war, as you can see, is moving towards the Mississippi River. So that's going to be another big part. The part of the Anaconda Plan, this is the snake over here, capturing the Mississippi River. Why do you need to do that? Because look, over here, Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, right? There is some more food being produced over here. If they can cut the Confederacy in two, they can divide and conquer. So this is classic divide and conquer. So Anaconda Plan, hey, whatever helps you remember, I guess. Okay. I mean, I will take whatever I can get at this point. That's the strategy of the Union. So here's just, wow, too far, too far. Okay. Major battles of the Civil War. So when you guys are looking at these battles, they're going to be part of one of these campaigns, either the campaign to take Richmond. So I'm thinking first Bull Run, second Bull Run, even to some extent Antietam. Look where Antietam is. It's in the border state of Maryland. That's significant, right? Gettysburg in Pennsylvania. These are the only 2 times that Lee's actually going to invade the Union. So pay careful note of that. Look at what he's trying to do. This is all part of that broader campaign. The other campaign we're going to see is a slow, steady push to the Mississippi River. So Shiloh is involved in this one right here. Vicksburg, huge. This is when the Union finally gets control of the Mississippi River. But we're also going to see that New Orleans plays a big role, as it always seems to in these early wars here, right? Because it is the opening of the Mississippi River. So that's another big part of the campaign. Once the Union takes control of the Mississippi with Vicksburg, which happens almost the exact same time Gettysburg is happening, then it's really inevitable, right? They're going to start to push east. They're going to try to get to Atlanta. You can see there's Atlanta occupied in 1864. Sherman's march. Talk about leaving bitterness and destruction in your wake. We're going to see that. Then it's a matter of time before those troops end up pushing north to Virginia, where they will meet at Appomattox Courthouse. So this is the general strategy, okay? We want to think Anaconda Plan, we want to think general strategy, and ultimately we want to think, why is this so difficult for the Union to win? They have no excuse. They outnumber the Confederacy 2-1. They have pretty much all the railroads connected, right? They have all the industrial might. But this thing takes 4 years. So we want to try to figure that out as you're going through these shows. How is that possible, right? Vicksburg is huge, turning point of the war in the West. Gettysburg is the real turning point, and I know our teams looking at Gettysburg have done a great job showing you this. Lee will lose a third of his whole army there. He'll never recover. But Vicksburg is really important as well. So some of the other highlights here, and I'm sure our Andersonville team is going to show you this, just the way that prisoners are treated. And it's especially at the end of the war, a lot of it had to do with the fact that they just didn't have supplies. You're going to see some pretty graphic pictures of prisoners of war at Andersonville that look almost like things you saw out of Nazi Germany. They're similar looking pictures. So check that out. We actually have a prisoner of war camp for Confederates not too far away from us, East Harbor State Park. Those of you that go out to Put-in Bay, Port Clinton, it's right out there. And there's of course, a historical marker there. I camped there with my family and I was like, we got to check this out. So it's there. They were everywhere. Prisoners of war were a major part of this war. We're going to talk, I'm going to screencast this one and I'm probably going to make you watch it. But we need to talk about the New York City draft riots. This is huge. This is huge because this shows us, again, I think the myth with our Northern halo, that Northerners were totally innocent of all racism in U.S. history. Not true. This is going to call that out. You're going to see it. You're going to see it. So we need to take a look at that. This happens while Gettysburg is happening. Crazy, right? We're going to talk about how Lincoln had a hard time pulling the Union together. It was constantly something that was making, I think that's part of the reason why it's so difficult for him to win this war. We're going to take a look. I know we've got some groups looking at Black soldiers in the war. Great movie called Glory, oldie but a goodie, one of Denzel Washington's first movies. And it's based on the true story of the 54th Massachusetts Regiment and their heroic assault on Fort Wagner in South Carolina, also happening 2 weeks after Gettysburg. July 1863. Big month for the United States. There's Colonel Robert Shaw, played by Matthew Broderick in the movie. I don't want to tell you what happens. I don't want to spoil it. And we have a team looking at the election of 1864, so we'll pull in a little bit of politics here and see McClellan, Lincoln's former general, runs against him. Awkward. Lincoln fired him twice. So a little bit of bitterness with that. He'll run the Peace Democrats, who their mentality was just let them go. Why do we care if they leave? We've all suffered enough. Let them go, right? And Lincoln really said, no, we've got to hold this Union together. So we'll look at his second inaugural. We're going to contrast that with his first. It is a much different tone. We looked at his first and he's like, oh, let slavery stay. I think it's horrible. Oh, let it stay though. Now he's made this war is now about ending slavery. He's gotten there. He is now the Lincoln you know, right? He is now the Lincoln you know. Sherman's march is bitter, my friends. And I argue that this is why you still, if you travel to Hilton Head or any of these areas where Sherman went through, I was just in Hilton Head last year, back when it was safe to travel, and saw a big billboard that said, Sherman, war criminal, 1864, right? And I was like, here we are in 2020. Still some bitterness left over at this. Let's figure it out. Let's talk about why. Sherman said, to know what war is, one must follow in our tracks. He's not kidding. So we're going to look at that. We're going to take a look at that. And how did this ultimately break the will and the morale and play a big role in the Confederacy surrendering? It absolutely did. Not to mention Lincoln's re-election in 1864. And then we'll take a look at the surrender. and the actual surrender. Oops, looks like I have an outdated video there. I'll fix that. But Appomattox Courthouse is a city, which I know sounds weird. There's actually a city in Ohio called Washington Courthouse. It's not a courthouse, it's a city. They actually surrendered in a home. And you can see, I'll post this link for you, but you can see a little video here that kind of explains that. These forces were just desperate. They were out of everything at this point. And Grant will be the general that accepts the surrender there. We're going to talk about the role women played in the war. We're talking about how women dressed as men and enlisted in the Civil War. And it's a pretty fascinating story. And that was true on both sides, actually. So we'll take a look at that too. And then we'll talk about Lincoln's assassination and one of the great what ifs. What if this had never happened? How would that change what happens next? We'll never know. Ugh, but I love thinking about it. So a little bit of background for you. This will set up what we're doing on Monday. Hopefully this helps you out. Can't wait to see all the wonderful awesomeness that you have created. And like I said, we won't be able to look at all of them, but I'll give you a little tour guide where you'll be able to kind of pick and choose a few stops in battles, a few stops in social, right? Probably be a few required that I want you to definitely watch. They're like really, really important ones. Other than that, it'll be sort of a self-guided tour, but I appreciate your flexibility in this weird thing we're doing called remote school. We're making it work. You guys are making it work. I'm just here for the ride. Okay. So see you soon. Have a lovely day.